So hi, I'm in my Fiat and off to the shop to get some Coke and some chocolates just before the market opens. Very interesting day today, and Microsoft earnings came out and their call and all that sort of thing, and earnings were really good, like really exceptionally good compared to expectations, and their call was full of talk about AI, and Microsoft went to a new 52-week high. I'm just looking at the charts, and on the charts you can see the NASDAQ has actually dropped off in pre-market. Apple has reached a new sort of 2-week low in pre-market. Microsoft's right up there. Nvidia's kind of hanging around the close from yesterday, but NASDAQ and Apple, the two big names, Apple's the biggest stock on the NASDAQ, seem to be selling off. So we've got Microsoft, the second biggest stock on the NASDAQ, rallying sharply to 52-week highs on the basis of earnings and their conference call. We've got Apple, the biggest stock on the NASDAQ, falling down below the low of the last 2 or 3 weeks. And we've got the NASDAQ just edging down beneath resistance and the 20-day moving average. We're going to have a look at the charts shortly, but going into today's trading session, I'm short NASDAQ and I'm short Apple, and I'll also be looking to short Nvidia. And if I could short Microsoft right now, I'd be doing that, but I can't trade on my broker in pre-market, so I can't do it. I'm only short Apple because we were short from yesterday. So it's going to be a super interesting trading session. Let's have a quick look at the charts when I get back from the store, and I'll put the video up and let's see how today trades. But it's going to be really interesting considering the way the market's positioned, the way the big players are positioning shorts and longs, the overall sentiment and all sorts of things that are going on in the market. And of course the dollar as well, which is affecting everything. Dollar just selling off again today. Okay, so I've got my charts all set up, and that one's just booting up. Let's go and have a look at the charts on the stocks and see what's going on. So I'm going to keep this super brief for the sake of time, but I've got the NASDAQ, S&P over here, NASDAQ, S&P, Nvidia, Apple, and Microsoft. These are the 4 stocks that we're kind of looking at right now. Here's Microsoft, this one down here, and you can see where we're trading in pre-market at around about $295, right up from the close of yesterday at $275. So that's a $20 jump. And it's still trading there right now. You'd think that with Microsoft going up so dramatically after earnings and the conference call, which it did by $20, as we've just seen, that we'd see a commensurate rise in some of the other stocks and perhaps NASDAQ. Before we get to NASDAQ, let's have a look at Apple, and this is where we're trading on Apple. And you can see we're trading below yesterday's close, the pre-market at 163.40. We closed yesterday at 163.80. And so we're about 40 cents below there already on Apple, and just breaking down below that 20-period moving average and approaching this rising trend line. So it's interesting, we've got the biggest stock on the NASDAQ moving down in pre-market. We've got the second biggest stock, Microsoft, moving up $20 after their earnings report. And then if we have a look at the NASDAQ itself, the overall index, bearing in mind that Apple and Microsoft make up a huge portion of the NASDAQ, you can see since yesterday, after bouncing up after the Microsoft earnings, we moved up to this red line, which is previous resistance and was support for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We moved up there, just touched it, and we've now started to move down again. We sold NASDAQ here at 12,890 thereabouts, I think, and we're looking for a move down on NASDAQ. I don't know how this is going to work out, but we've got this big divergence between Microsoft, the NASDAQ, and Apple. NASDAQ and Apple moving down quite sharply, and Microsoft moving up by $20. So really, really interesting. We'll have to see how this plays out. I said in my tweet, I'm not able to sell Microsoft in the pre-market on my broker, but I was able to sell NASDAQ. We're short NASDAQ from roughly near this resistance level, and we're short Apple from yesterday, which has already moved down to 163.28 as I'm recording this video. At the same time, we see that the dollar index has been rejected once again from its 20-day moving average, falling down towards the low of yesterday's candle and also forming a lower high, but we'll have to wait and see what happens to the dollar today. I think the dollar, the NASDAQ, Apple, Microsoft, all intimately entwined in this rather interesting and strange dance that we're seeing going on right now. There's all sorts of interest on both sides of the market in US stocks, and it's going to be super interesting to see which side comes out on top. Is it going to be the bears or is it going to be the bulls? I think today might be quite pivotal. If we can't get a boost on the Microsoft earnings and the Microsoft rally in NASDAQ and some of the other major stocks like Apple, the biggest one, then a move to the downside looks pretty inevitable. Let's see what happens. The last thing I want to say is Nvidia. We're up near this trend line. That's where I'd like to sell. If we can get a short trade in right at the opening of the market, which is in about 2 hours time, we'll be looking to sell Nvidia as well. Then we'll be short NASDAQ, short Nvidia, short Apple, and perhaps even we might get a bash at selling Microsoft. Have a fantastic day, and if you enjoyed this content, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here.